post-traumatic stress disorder, how it's affected me, and how I have overcome it and prevailed. If that's something that you're interested in, or that you struggle with, or that decimates your life, stay tuned. I'm gonna talk about my firsthand experience and how I can help you overcome this debilitating PTSD. If any of you guys are really struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder, commonly referred to as PTSD, then hopefully my story that I'm about to share can give you a little bit of insight into how I've dealt with it, but also give you inspiration and the realization that it is 100% curable or beatable, and you don't have to suffer with PTSD, or at least in my case, I was able to overcome it. So quickly kind of give you an idea of how it started, kind of my story. When I was 21, I started selling drugs, mainly marijuana, which is now legal in the beautiful state of New Jersey. But back then it wasn't. And again, you know, none of this, I'm not saying anything for advocating this or not advocating that purely, this is just my own experience, my own story. And as I've said before, like, I don't like covering things up. So I think a lot of problem in our society as we're trending is we're in this so-called cancel culture where it's just like, you can do this, but nope, you can't do that. And hey, if we don't want you doing that, whoever decides that, the big corporations, social media, will just kick you off the platform. So I'm not for that at all. I like sharing real stuff, my own personal experiences. So again, not advocating for one thing or the other, purely sharing my experience. Anyway, started selling drugs, started selling weed predominantly, but some other things. And I ended up basically making a whole string of mistakes, and eventually was robbed. And I was actually robbed twice. The first time I was in my apartment, basically got broken into by 4 guys, came in, and I was pretty much knocked unconscious. It was just me in there versus 4 of them. And I ended up having to go to the ER. I had a broken nose. If you ever look in my videos, maybe you can see that. I got cut under my right eye here. I don't know if you can still see, there's a scar under there, but I had to go to the ER. Was basically out of commission for like a full month. But crazy enough, that was not a wake-up call. This is when I was either 21, I think 21 or 22. And I was so set on that lifestyle. Like, I basically was so stupid at the time, so naive, that I was like, I'm gonna make $1 million selling weed, and then I'm gonna cash out, and I'm just gonna be good. Like, that was my mindset when I was 21. And it was asinine. But that's how I thought. So at the time, after I got robbed, I didn't move. I didn't do anything different. I stayed in the same apartment, kept on doing exactly the same thing that I was doing. And at that point, I didn't even really have PTSD from that happening. I was like, you know what? Like, this happened, and I don't know. I don't know if it was just me being stupid or not wanting to actually kind of evaluate what had just happened. But I stayed in the exact same apartment doing the exact same thing I was doing. And then about, I guess it would have been maybe like 8 or 9 months later after that happened, there was another attempt, another robbery attempt, home invasion, if you will. This time I was kind of ready. I had a couple of my friends over, and basically ended up like barricading myself in the apartment. It was like a small apartment where there was like only one door in. So I basically just like had like a blockade on that door, and they couldn't get in. But it got pretty crazy. I had a buddy acquaintance at the time who actually had a firearm on him, and he shot it off in the apartment out the window, broke the window. Like it got pretty crazy in there that second time. At that point, I was basically just like, man, it's either like if they come in, someone's getting killed, or something extremely bad is going to happen. Like, it's going to be more than just an ER visit for somebody at this point. So after that second time, I was really fucked up. I I had severe PTSD. I had nightmares like recurring like pretty much every night, like where to the point where I almost couldn't like distinguish like what was reality. Like I thought I was constantly going to be my house was going to be broken into. I ended up moving back home with my parents, and like I thought that there was going to be someone that broke into the house. I would sleep with like a baseball bat right next to my bed. I was always like surveilling, like looking around. It was nuts. I was basically living in a constant state of fear and paranoia and PTSD, and it sucked. It was terrible. And ultimately I lived like that for quite a long time. I mean, I lived like that for years, to be honest, but it was really only bad for maybe the first year or so, because I just didn't know. Like I was coming out of this lifestyle where, you know, I was doing a ton of drugs. I was selling drugs. I was basically living like a complete nomad, and you know, was just completely reckless. And I basically had the death of that. And again, like it's hard because when I try to talk to you guys, it's like some of that you need to do, because like as men, I think you have to live kind of that reckless, on edge lifestyle for some guys. I'm gonna sit down here. For some guys, right? Not everyone, everyone's different, but for me, I kind of had to get that out of my system. And it's like, it's so hard because on the one hand, it was terrible. It was like one of the worst things that ever happened in my life. On the other hand, it was one of the best things that ever happened. So pretty much once I moved home, I started getting my life back together. I got off all the drugs. Like I was smoking cigarettes at the time. I quit smoking cigarettes. I can make another video about how to quit cigarettes. I know it's 2021. A lot of times that's the most common New Year's resolution for people is lose weight and quit cigarettes, quit alcohol, quit caffeine or coffee. Those are the most common resolutions I hear. So if you want help doing that, I'll make another video. I actually have a video on that. I just haven't released it. But the point is I quit everything. Like I basically had a rebirth of myself. And this was when I was probably 22, 23. And yeah, I had a whole rebirth. I quit doing all that stuff, and I essentially started working out really heavily. And I got big into powerlifting, bodybuilding. A lot of that was kind of my repressed and just coming from fear, to be honest. Like I wanted to be the biggest, strongest, baddest motherfucker. You see a lot of guys that come from like the hood that have a lot of traumatic experiences, like survival experiences. You basically, when something like that happens, you'll go into either fight or flight. Like I've seen people with the same kind of situation with like either like drugs or whatever has happened, and they'll just completely shut down. Like they'll end up going way worse. Like they'll just completely, their brain will just freeze, and they'll be in flight. They'll just try to run away, or they'll just completely be paralyzed and just end up, it just become like just way worse. So what I want to segue into is this idea that when these things happen, the answer for me, and I believe for pretty much everyone when trying to get over PTSD, and again, PTSD can be caused from a whole bunch of different things. It's most commonly kind of referred to with like veterans that come back from like Iraq or Afghanistan. That's why I mostly hear it. But I mean, PTSD, you can get it domestic just living in the US. Again, if you're doing things like what I was doing, or, you know, you have some sort of crazy ass experiences, any sort of childhood trauma, like if you were beaten, there's crazy stuff, right? So I realize it can arise from many different things. Anyway, the way that I was able to beat it is taking action. Say it again with me. Taking action. Take action. Take action. And by doing that and realizing that you're not necessarily, maybe you are a victim, but listen, the bottom line is that you want to spin it so that you're the cause and not the effect. And realize that as much as these things suck, you can use them as energy, right? You can take the positive energy, or I should say you can take the negative energy going around this event and turn it into positive energy, which propels you forward and you take action. So for me, the first step was I had been really unhealthy, and so I started working out heavily, right? I started feeling better there. I started eating more. I started getting better social relationships. Then I started reading a lot. And the point is just taking action. in order to gain energy, you have to expend energy, right? And think of yourself almost as like this energy entity, and as much as you put out is kind of how much you're going to get back in. So when you're coming from a place like this, let me sit down again, you need to take action. You need to get out of your own head, and you just need to start putting one foot in front of the other. And it was really hard at first for me. Like, even when I was like 24, 25, I was taking a lot of action and I was moving my life in the right direction, but I still had like nightmares, like at least several times per week. I was still very paranoid, and the fact is that it's not a overnight fix. It's something where it could take a while, but the point is that you're making the little baby steps and getting those little wins along the way, and realize that if you don't take action, it will never get better by itself. Like, the misconception is with PTSD and things like this is that time is going to heal it, or that you're going to get better with time. And you will get better with time if you're making the right steps in the right direction, but time could easily make it way worse. It could calcify you, right? More, so that you're stuck in these old ways and victimhood and thinking that you're at the effect and not the cause. So you need to condition yourself so you're at the cause, not the effect. You need to condition yourself so that you take action, and you need to condition yourself so that it's the little baby steps along the way. And condition yourself, and you can look more into like the neuroscience of getting the little wins, but essentially what you want to do is condition yourself so that by getting that little win, even if it's so small, you're retraining your brain and your dopamine center, so that instead of working towards those little wins is draining you, it's actually giving you more energy. And like I always talk about, you basically, to me, are either in an upward spiral or you're in a downward spiral. And plateaued is actually downward, because over time, as you're plateaued, you get older, you get more calcified. So that's actually down. So you want to get yourself into this upward spiral. And you may be asking, well, what the hell is the upward spiral? Well, it's essentially aligning yourself with a good energy, taking action, taking steps, being empathetic, empowering other people, living a more healthy lifestyle, living a more congruent lifestyle. And, it's going to be different for everybody, but essentially that gut feeling, you'll know, right? You'll know. When I was living this crazy ass lifestyle, I felt nervous all the time. I felt like I had a knife in my stomach, or maybe more accurately, like I had a knot tied in my stomach all the time. When I would wake up, when I would go to bed, I just felt nervous. Like I did not feel good. And guess what? Since I've stopped doing that, I feel amazing. And also don't have nightmares anymore, and also can have great relationships and live a healthy lifestyle, and actually wake up in the morning happy to be alive instead of just dreading it and basically going wherever the day takes me. So I know this is a big topic that affects a lot of people around the world, but also just in the US. And it could be caused from a lot of different things, but realize that you're not alone. Realize that if you're having nightmares, they will cease. Realize that you can regain your life back, and it's a matter of taking action. Remember, time in itself is not going to heal it. You do need to take action, and you need to take the little steps each day, retrain yourself to really think of those little things as a victory, and over time, you'll gain the momentum into the upward spiral, and before you know it, all that PTSD will be a thing of the past, or at least will have a much less charge to it. And the final thing that I want to say is, don't always think of everything in your life that's bad as actually being bad. As I have found, the hardest things in my life, where they've been the ugliest, the most challenging, maybe where I was a victim even, have always been the things that have led me to grow the most in the long run. Again, if your life is constantly like this and you never have any really dips, yeah, you live a nice, easy life, but you're never, boom, going down, which means you can never really go up. You're constantly just kind of in this middle. And it's not like I wish these things are going to happen to me, but realize that life in itself is going to throw a lot of curveballs at you. It's going to throw a lot of hardship at you either way, whether you want it or you don't want it. And learning to rebound, what I call springboard off of those lows, is what really enables both the growth and, in a way, the real beauty in life. And so always keep that in mind, always keep that in the back of your head. And I think that going forward, things will be much easier. And I know that you can become much better. You'll get through this and we'll go forward together. And that's it. I know how hard it can be, but it's absolutely achievable. Hope this video is helpful. I'll be back very soon. I'm out.